Good
Okay.
afternoon, John. Donovan,
Hi, Marty.
how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing great. Got my Maori, I'll say Tonga. I don't know what island that is, but they're the
Did you actually get it there?
warrior people. I got it at the VA thrift shop.
Oh, nice. Beautiful. I
Yeah.
got my neutral white shirt on, so
Uh, oh, cool.
uh well as always, I'm happy to have the chance to get together with you and discuss topics around the accountability practice. And like to welcome
Hmm.
anybody who's watching us for the first time. Like to say we're glad you're here, and I have a topic that might be of interest to particularly people coming in for the first time, but maybe also of interest to old timers, people who've been around for a while. And that's this, and it's a question that has come up through work that I do with individuals and with the groups that I facilitate, and it has to do with the relationship between 12-step programs, and particularly the granddaddy of them all, adult Alcoholics Anonymous (AA), and the accountability practice. And some
Mm.
people some people participate in both, and some people experience that as a conflict from time to time. So I know that
Hmm.
you got your start in 12 steps long before accountability became showed up for you as a practice, and it's a distinct practice, I would suggest. So I thought I'd just throw that out and see what you think, and maybe we can have a conversation about that.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. There's a lot of um, conflict even in the 12 step, with the different groups and what they mean and what's going on. So,
Sure.
okay. So, wait a minute. Did you ask me a question?
Well, yeah, my question there is what how do you how do you approach the relationship between these programs, between these practices?
Oh, um,
Let's start there.
okay. That it's number one, that it's there. That all these programs, I want to say, qualify this as are magnificently powerful, life-saving programs, from AA to NA, Overeaters Anonymous, Relationships Anonymous, Codependence, Al-Anon. They're all life-saving programs, and they're in the 12 step. They call it a spiritual practice, where they mention higher power. When they wrote them, um, there were people that were coming together to write these, and some of the people were agnostic or didn't believe in God, so they chose higher power, and left out God in certain areas. Um, and they all serve a purpose. I started in first meeting was AA, and for a short period of time I went to AA meetings, and then I found ACA, and for me, AA was, I want to say, I was too fragile to sit in a room where somebody would point at me and say, "Do you want to speak?" I was that fragile. Um, and when I went to ACA, I could sit there and not say anything. And I did. I did for 8 months. I didn't say a word. I listened. I usually left early. So, um, so people are drawn to what their need is, and it's all good. And AA has a standard and a set of ground rules that work for alcoholics. Some meetings, if you go to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting and you mention alcohol, they don't even want you to do that. This is drug Narcotics Anonymous. Okay, we don't care about the alcohol. And some NA meetings you go to, and you can talk about where you're at with either alcohol, drugs, or I've been a drug and alcohol counselor for, oh my God, 23 years. And I've worked in the jails, and most of the programs I've worked with have been affiliated with the 12-step. And there's a lot of conflict with people who go there. And one of the things you mentioned before we talked is that one 12-step group will tell me one thing, then I'll go to somebody else and they'll tell me another thing. And yeah, okay, yeah, you go to AA, they'll tell you this is how it works. You go to NA, they'll tell you this is how it works. You go to Al-Anon, they'll say, and they're all in conflict. There can be conflict. Now, which is a mirror of life. I mean, not everybody thinks the same way. So my own personal experience with 12 steps was that after a period of time, I wanted to know the next level. Where do we go from here? And at that time, that's all they had was the 12-step program. They did have like workshops you could pay to go to, like John Bradshaw. That S thing in the 80s was way back before I started my recovery. But they had people who did S-type workshops where you went in and you like dug deep into what's going on inside you. And
Yeah, I myself participated in the grandson of that called Landmark.
yeah, Landmark. I was in a one called Impact. Okay, so and they were different. If anybody comes to me and say, well, they told me this, and now you're telling me this, I can see the conflict in what works for you. And would you be willing to consider that they're complementary, although in conflict? One of the things I didn't know that I needed to know was how to hold opposites, or one person's opinion and another person's opinion that may have been diametrically opposed, and see the value for me in that and let the rest go. Instead of saying, oh, everybody's got to say it this way, or I'm confused. Well, okay, yeah. It's my experience that I can't get two people to say it the same way. Similar, they'll be similar, but that's the uniqueness of being a human being. And I believe that's why the 12-step worked so well for me, because I could come in there as I was and listen and observe, and nobody said, you got to be different. You got to do this differently. And that's the ACA. They even had a workbook called a gentler, kinder way, a gentler way through, which that appealed to me. It's like, so it's a matter of looking, okay, so this thing about what's next, well, that was maybe 6-7 years into my recovery in the 12-step. And I went to a Bradshaw workshop. I did the Impact workshop. I would start listening to, back then it wasn't a lot of big YouTube stuff. I'd reading books about different stuff and different modalities. Okay. And I became a violence intervention program facilitator. And through the accumulation of all my experiences, I've put together this intentional living accountability tree process where I address a specific issue that I'm facing, a relational issue or a perception issue. And it's actually what I was looking for, the next level. I want it to happen faster. And even now, I want it to happen faster. And I found something that works really well for me. And all the meetings I do, I preface the meeting because a lot of people come in our 12-step people. I preface the meeting as this is a peer facilitated group. So it's not a 12-step. 12-step, they have almost all of them, no crosstalk, no feedback, no judgments, no opinions about what you hear. You just listen. And in intentional living, accountability tree, I facilitate people through one at a time, the best way I can, one at a time. And I have qualifiers in there about this is a guided process group, so that people are clear, because somebody coming from a 12-step, they have a way that they do it. And in this one, there's dialogue between a facilitator and the person working through whatever, or a question and answer where we exchange, I explain the material, and that kind of thing. So anything I missed or anything you need clarity on?
Well, let's plow deeper into the specific issue that this came from. As I was chatting with one of our colleagues in the work, she was talking about a conflict that she felt. Um, she came to this work, to the accountability practice work, from her 12-step program,
Mm-hmm.
and then she finds that the meetings that she used to go to and found all of this life-saving energy and support different now that she
Yeah.
does accountability. And
Right.
she finds the accountability work a little more practical or pragmatic. And so she feels disloyalty. She feels a conflict about if I don't stick with my original program, I'm being disloyal to not just the program, but to the people that are going to those meetings. And she said, "Would you ask John if we could talk about that? You guys talk about that on the podcast." And then it's ironic how the world works. So several times after that conversation I had, it came up in some of the meetings that I facilitate, um, and just spontaneously from people discussing their
Mm-hmm.
discomfort or, God, I feel bad. I'd rather be here than in my 12-step meeting, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And of course,
Um,
I'm not looking for an answer here because obviously each of us works that out on our own. But I just wanted to see if you had any general observations.
yeah, the intentional living material and the practice of the accountability tree is an experience. It's a guided experience. It's like one of the workshops, that impact workshop S knockoff, um, gave me an example of going to a place and experiencing something internal. Um, and when I first got into 12 steps, I would read the steps, I would read the books, I would do the workbooks. And not that this was wrong, but most of it was intellectual. It's like step one, I am powerless over alcohol in my life as unmanageable. Well, I would say that, and I would rest on how unmanageable it was instead of feeling the powerlessness, what hopeless, and dropping into a feeling tone. Well, um, in my work in the jails, and that's where this material developed about accountability. I was working with violent offenders and addicts, um, court-ordered men and women. Um, and their what do you call it? They were highly incentivized to do something to stay out of jail. It could be a requirement of probation or requirement of parole. So and my own experience of going into violence intervention class, for me to stop my violence, I remember the first group I went to, and it was a facilitated group. So the guy said, this group is for men who are violent. And he explained emotional violence, dismissing, ignoring, redefining, withholding, verbal violence, raising my voice, threatening, objectifying, calling names, or diminishing somebody. And then the physical violence, he had two definitions of physical violence around somebody, throwing something in the room, driving fast, doing something to intimidate, but not touching, physical violence. And then physical violence too. And he simply said, if you're not a violent man, you simply come to the wrong group. You can go. And I didn't go. So I was out of denial. I'm a violent man. And then he went right into accountability. And he explained, just simply say the violence you do, own it. And don't blame it, don't minimize it. Don't say it's on somebody else's fault. I wouldn't have done it if they. Simply own it. And when I heard him say that, there was something in what he said that I was looking for. I felt it go through me. I didn't understand. It wasn't a cognitive thing. It was a spiritual thing. It was a epiphany, knocked off my donkey moment where I got, wow. And what I did get was this man just outlined my path to nonviolence, my path to freedom, my path to get out of my own critical self. And I stayed. That was in 1998. And I was already volunteering at the Folsom Prison. And he hired me to do this class at Sacramento County Jail. And I started working for him in 2000, quit in 2002, and started a process group because I heard what he said and it meant something to me, but I would say the same thing to the guys in the jail, and I would see that they didn't feel it, they heard it. And I'm not sure what they heard. And one day I asked them, what are you hearing me say? And this one guy said, John, you want me to be a sissy, like nonviolent. I was, oh, how in the hell? And at the same time, I was doing a workshop 12-week from a book, and this was you do this first week, second week, third week. Well, in the second week, they talked about this mechanism inside your midbrain brainstem. It's called a reticular activating system. Well, that's good information. That's where you hold the wounding and beliefs and stuff. Okay, so they mentioned that. Then they went on to setting goals. And I did, I don't know, 5 12-week sessions. And I'd lose all the guys in like week 5, week 6, they'd start like zoning out. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. This mechanism needs attention. And I found that this mechanism has a self-protective device, the survival mechanism, 5, 5, freeze, please. And this is the centerpiece of accountability. Family of origin dysfunction, childhood trauma, hooked into my survival mechanism, which means recreate what you survived through, like the drama, the chaos,
Fear.
and fear. And then um, there's the result of that is for me was addiction, codependency, avoidant behaviors, violent behavior. Well, the violent behavior, although destructive, hurtful, um, was in alignment with what what this my memory was holding from my childhood, and it was confusing.
And it's holding that memory at a subconscious level,
Right.
as an emotional, a collection of emotional states, not an
Okay.
intellectual,
It's not. Yeah.
verbal
It's
thought.
pre-verbal, and a lot of it's nonverbal. There's no words
Right.
for it. Just a trauma that's stuck, and then when something happens out of my environment that is similar or triggers this, I go into a survival response, fight, flight, freeze, please. And I found that's where my violence was coming from. Because I would say, I don't want to be violent, and then 2.5 seconds later, raise my voice. So one of the things I heard in the 12 step is this is a cunning, baffling, powerful disease. And I wanted to know, this is early in my recovery, I want to know what was cunning, baffling, and powerful. And I found out that the family of origin dysfunction, childhood trauma stuck in the subconscious, hooked to the survival mechanism, is a formula for addiction, codependency, and avoidant behaviors. And all these traits that were destructive or non-productive were simply in alignment with the unresolved trauma. And I put together, this is over a period of time, I didn't all like boom, but I put together the accountability, the feeling I had at accountability, just stating the behavior, I'm violent, without blame or judgment, addressed the trauma. And then I would say, they would talk about role we'd play. And then you're playing a role of the man, which gives you the authority to violate. What do you want to change it with? And they say, I want to be kind. Okay. And I took that and put it in accountability, no blame, no judgment. I'm violent. Take a breath, because that statement, I'm violent, has encoded in it the pain that caused the behavior. Whether it made sense or not, for my little child to stay safe, I needed to keep people away. Violence worked. This is all subconscious. Even though I didn't want to be violent, I didn't want to drink at times. I wanted to quit and found that I couldn't, because this mechanism, brainstem, midbrain, is powerful and cunning to maintain its survival. And it was in my subconscious.
Oh, and can I just add on to that?
Yeah, please.
Sorry to interrupt your train of thought there, but you said something a few minutes ago that really grabbed me, and I have never heard you say it exactly this way, but you talked about the cunning, baffling, powerful experience
Mm-hmm.
is, so your words were, recreating what we lived through as kids. And
Yeah.
the so what the way I express this is that that creates a certain body chemistry or emotional tone that's always calling me back to it,
Yep.
because from childhood on, nothing intervened to change the trajectory of that experience.
Correct.
AKA, there was no healing ever occurred.
Right.
And so then I spent my life essentially reinforcing the same, trying to be in that body chemistry, trying to recreate what I had lived through in a different environment now. Yes, I'm older, I'm bigger, I'm smarter, I make more money, or all those kinds of things. But at
Mm-hmm.
heart, I'm still a little kid
Mm-hmm.
who has been forced to identify with those living circumstances and environment that I grew up in my family of origin. Not not through anything except this is the way we're structured. And so part of the reason I wanted to bring that up is because to help particularly people that maybe experience thinking about this the first time, Why is it so cunning and baffling? It's partly because nothing ever intervened to supplant it with something more powerful, something more loving, something more compassionate. And
Yep.
and as you said, there's nothing wrong with what happened. We had to survive somehow. That wasn't an option. Non-survival is not an option. And so
Right.
we had to develop a defense. We just, like you said, we just had no way to analyze it. We just went with it.
Right.
And now
And
here we are
because it
years
was,
later going through this process. And as you say, it's in alignment with that experience
yes,
because nothing ever intervened to create a different alignment.
right. And when you say nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong. It's working for my survival,
Perfectly.
and it hurts, and it's destructive. It's like I don't want to do this, and the hurt, the destruction, the pain is real, although the behavior is in alignment with the trauma. It's like hurt people hurt. Um, and the clinical name for what we're talking about is complex post-traumatic stress. We all know that a veteran coming from Afghanistan exhibits behaviors of post-traumatic stress. They hear a loud noise, they drop, or they're hyper alert what's going on around. They got to know what's going. Okay, it's in alignment with war zone. Okay, we don't say to that guy, "You're stupid." Oh, what's wrong with you? How come you can't be mature? Oh, just let it go, because it's in the subconscious. So we address them with compassion. When I walk into a room and this mechanism is working and somebody raises an eyebrow, which at some point in my childhood that meant pain or being ostracized or trauma, and I get anxious, I go, oh, there's something wrong with me. I'm anxious. How come I can't? And start blaming and judging and criticizing instead of going, oh, complex post-traumatic stress. I am anxious, just feel it. Uh, I intend to heal. I intend to move through this. I intend to find safety. I intend to make myself safe. And those statements, this never hurt as a child. Like, I see you're scared. Oh, I say that to my grandson. I see you're upset. I see you're frustrated. Because he is, and I'm mirroring it for him. I don't say you can't do that, or you're stupid, or you're being who do you think you're talking to? Because he's learning this. I'm gonna say we. I'm gonna assume we did not learn emotional regulation, how to have tolerance around frustration, feeling ourselves frustrated and not have to hit somebody or run out of the room or leave, or impulse control. That was my addiction. I was like, it's Miller time. I want to be, and just go with the impulse. And what's the other one? Delayed gratification. If I could just wait a minute here, maybe the craving would go away. Impulse control. Just sit and be, oh my God, oh, it left. Oh, but here it comes again. Okay, another example of impulse control. But I didn't learn impulse control because I was wounded. So I exhibited all the signs and behaviors of somebody who was traumatized. And this is in recent history where, people from wars, from what I can remember, Second World War, from my dad, shell shock, we had all kinds of names for it. And we just hoped they'd be okay. And, oh, he's this way because he went through the war. He wakes up in the night and flails his arms around because he went through the war. Oh, okay. So when I wake up, well, I was in Vietnam, but I didn't go through a war like that. And I had those symptoms before I went into the service, complex post-traumatic stress. And um, there's so much more here. The intentional living material information that I talk about all this stuff. And then the accountability tree practice where I take myself into, like, I'm violent. that experience I had with that facilitator. His name was Pete. And I got that, oh my God, I felt relief. Uh, And it was the first time I like came out of denial. Oh my God, I'm emotionally violent. I didn't even know the definition of, I didn't know what it was. Verbally violent. I didn't know raising my voice was threatening and violent. I thought I was just trying to get my point across. It's like, get people to hear me. It's like, you're not hearing me, I'll talk louder. It's like, I, and then when I realized that, the way out and the hope for the way out came. I still didn't know how to get out, but there was a feeling tone. And what I said then, and I don't practice that now, but I said, I intend to be nonviolent. And I moved to, well, oh, if I intend to be nonviolent, the universe doesn't hear no. So I intend to live in peace. Okay. So I homed that down a little bit, but I intend to live in peace. And that's the, well, shadow work that Jung talks about. Look at that part of yourself you really don't want to look at. What? I'm violent. Oh my God. I don't want to say that out loud. Then I'm stuck. Then I'm damned. Then I'm a Catholic. I'm going to go to hell. It's like, oh no, that's the way out is through what? The truth about where I find myself. Because where I find myself is always in alignment with my experience. Cannot not be in alignment with my experience. So and we're on the violent thing, if I find myself violent, I'm not saying that doesn't hurt me and the people around me, because it certainly does. It's very destructive, it's shattering, it's traumatizing. Now I'm thinking about my children. I would be loud. What I thought was loud, now I know violent, was traumatizing to my children. They were setting in their subconscious things that they didn't know to have to deal with when they were adults. So I want to stop that. And I'm glad we're talking about it, because we could talk, we got an hour, we could talk for 10 hours and just get the tip of the iceberg of the immensity of what I'm talking about. It's like, Gabriel Monte says, complex post-traumatic stress, not just post-traumatic stress. It's complicated because I was wounded as a infant, neglected, left hungry, left to cry. You know, Dr. Zeus always put them in the room, let them cry, which I had to stuff then, nonverbal, which I missed the developmental stage of security, surrender, trust. And I went on to the next stage of self-worth without the foundation, and it's just compounded in a complex way that when I was 40, I give up. I'm done. I'm sick and tired of it. I need help. Just devastated.
So
And
I
started
understand.
working my way out.
I understood I understand the complexity also this way, which is that unlike the soldier in the war zone, the soldiers are taken out of the war zone after so many months on combat duty. When you're a kid, this is the trauma of 1,000 paper cuts. It happens every day, day after day after day. It may not be dramatic. It may not be bullets
Right.
coming at you. It may not be sexual violence or some really horrible thing. It just might be you're just hear
Right.
yourself called stupid or useless or inauthentic just over and over and over again without any
Mm-hmm.
relief. No relief.
Right.
I remember when I was a young man, because I was the oldest grandchild of my dad's parents, I got to go and spend a couple of weeks with them when I was in like 8, 9, 10 years old. And it was like I
Mm-hmm.
entered into Disneyland because there was none of the criticism, there was none of the who do you think you are. They loved me, they adored me. I felt like Prince Charming. Um, and that was how I could tell. I mean, I didn't add two and two and get four there, but I could tell there was something really different with where I lived from this other possibility. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's so for how many of us have even get that? So for me, as I came across the term of complex PTSD, part of the way I understand this complexity is just the relentlessness of it. It doesn't have to be a big
Yes.
deal, but there's a cumulative impact of having this happen day after
Mhm.
day, month after month, year after year with no relief.
Right. My daughter told me one time, she used the term normalize. We normalize this behavior.
Mhm.
And that, yeah, it's like, doesn't everybody do this? Isn't every family like this? It's, and it's normal for me to be suspicious of people's motives when they ask me a question instead of hearing the question and responding in like. I would like, oh, what are you asking me that for? It's like, oh, you're trying to control me. Oh, who do you think I am? It's all this stuff I had in there instead of, oh, where have I been? Oh, let me tell you where I've been. It's like, and then just talk is like,
Yeah, my favorite normalization story about that. I may have told you this before, but when I first did ACA back in the late '80s, and I was living in San Francisco, and I remember being at a party with a group of friends, and I was sharing with this woman that I was an ACA, and she had been an ACA too, and she related the story. She's telling her mom that she grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. She was telling her mom, I'm in this thing because you guys were alcoholics, and that had a certain impact on her. She said, oh, her mom said, "Oh, come on, everybody drank in those days.
yeah, 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 yeah,
It's just
yeah.
normal."
Hold on a minute. I'm gonna close the door. We got some cleaning stuff going. Hold.
Okay.
Yeah. So normalizing dysfunctional behavior. Um, yeah.
Let's let's
I
um
I had an
let's
inkling. Let me say, I had an
yeah.
inkling that something was wrong because I never invited people to my home.
Ah,
I was too embarrassed. And when people did come, I was like, just kind of, this place, they're gonna see. And it wasn't like I was just I was in a reactive mode. I was frozen or critical or ashamed, embarrassed.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I get it. So I was going to say let's circle back now to the 12 steps. Um, One of the things that I think we've talked about this before, but I want to put it on the table in the context that we've been discussing this. One of the things that I noticed about 12 steps, and my only experience in 12 steps is through Adult Children of Alcoholics, ACA, um, which
mhm.
which like Al-Anon and Alateen and Debtors Anonymous and Narcotics and all those other anonymous programs spun off the original one. So I called it the granddaddy at the beginning of the talk. Um, what I noticed is that with the exception of ACA, all of the other 12-step programs focus on a cessation of a particular behavior,
Correct.
and that the success of the program can actually be measured by whether the behavior changed, aka did you stop drinking, did you stop
Right.
overeating, did you stop obsessive sexual behavior, did you stop
Correct.
spending money you don't have. And
Mhm.
ACA is the only program that actually doesn't have a behavioral focus. It has a healing focus. And therefore, it's very difficult when you're an ACA to notice those same kinds of benchmarks. And
Mhm.
it came clear to me when in ACA you get a chip. Let's say this in AA you get a chip for every year that you maintain your sobriety.
Right.
In ACA you get a chip for every year you've been attending,
Yes.
which has
Mhm.
no relationship to whether anything has happened internally. And it's like, again, nothing's wrong with that.
Right.
Um, but I always I began to see the divergence between ACA and the other 12-step programs because of that, and that I would listen to people coming over from AA in particular or NA, and come into ACA and then come into accountability practice, who would say, you know, we don't address any of these issues in those other programs, and that this is almost like their sense of your version of there's I want to go to the next level.
Yeah.
There's something else here for me. And I remember reading uh, uh, Bill W.'s essay on emotional sobriety, which he wrote, I think, 20 years or so after they started AA. And it was very clearly on his mind that there is something else here. I
Yeah.
don't, obviously, it never got incorporated into AA, and that's fine.
Mm.
I'm not criticizing that. But
Mm.
what is clear to me is that the wounding that leads us to addictive behaviors predates the addictive behavior.
Correct.
So in other words, I didn't drink as a 4-year-old.
No.
But I was already developing my defense against the woundings that led to me drinking as a way to try to avoid unpleasantness that's coming up from inside, for which I had no answers,
Correct.
except maybe alcohol in this case.
Mm. Yeah. And again, we haven't got enough time to sort the complexity of this out, but I want to give an example. And this is pro AA and also pro ACA. In AA, I heard the statement, feelings aren't facts. So my interpretation of that was stay away from feelings. Only what they were describing as feelings was a reaction response to unresolved trauma. And it made sense. So if somebody went to what they called a feeling, which was not really an emotion or body sensation, it was a avoidance of the feeling, like I feel like this place sucks, I'm gonna go have a drink. Feelings aren't facts. Okay, that works. AA needs to say that. They need to say that. Now, in ACA, the interpretation of feelings is different in that it's a visceral sensation that maybe has a word or no word. And when I introduce people to this concept of feeling, I'll say something outrageous like the obstacles to you going to someplace you're not is everything you think, say, do, and choose not to think, not say, not to do. In other words, your total experience of not feeling got you here so you could recognize you don't have something, and everything you did got you here. So you cannot rely on that. And based on what you hear me say, how do you feel? And most people go to what they think. Well, I think I'm screwed. Okay. Okay. No, along with that thought, there's a body sensation. Where do you feel it in your body? And people will point to their chest or their arms or their jaw. And I said, just take a breath. Just take a breath. Because they want to fix it now. They want to be something. Okay, no. Feeling. That's what this is the complexity of what I'm saying is we use a word to describe behavior, feeling, or reaction, impulse control. That's not really a feeling, and yet it's true. Don't do that. Don't do that. I mean, that's reasonable for AA to say that, and it saved a lot of lives. I'm not saying it's wrong. And then in ACA, it's what are you feeling in your body? Actually, it gets close there. That's why accountability, that's why this new next step through my experience bringing this together for me, which works out very well for a lot of other people also, is to differentiate between a thought and a feeling. The feeling is generally pre-thought, and yet it happens so quickly, instantaneously, that I have no separation. It's a reaction. So what are you feeling in your body? And people will point to their chest, heavy. It could be elated too. It could be, oh my God, there's something. That body sensation is where they're holding their trauma. And you have to get in, have to sort out our socialization of feelings are fact to, oh, wait a minute, this is like, whoa, why would you ask me to do that when I'm telling you these are all my problems? And I don't know, trust me, placate the old guy. Nice deep breath. And then something happens in there where they connect and start the process of sorting this out, which can take a long time. Took a long time for me, years, and it's a beginning of something different. And the practice, the accountability tree practice, gives me an experience of feeling, because as a child I had this feeling of danger, and I was told it wasn't true. So I had to make up a story stuff, push the feeling away. There must be something wrong with me. How come people that are treated this way must be bad people? I'm not worthy. I don't feel safe. And you don't even know how to say that. You just like stuffed it and like looked around and hope nobody slapped you or hit you or criticized or told you were wrong. One of the biggest woundings I've experienced as a child is the expectation to act like an adult. It's like that is so devastating because I'm not. I need help here. I need mirroring. I need help. I need love. I need, oh, I see you're frustrated. Let me hold you. My grandson, I don't care, scrapes his knee. He goes in, he gets a hug, and his mother kisses the boo boo, and he's fine. He's processed the pain, been acknowledged, and moves through instead of stuffing. Oh, he's a young boy, Solomon. He's not told to be tough. He's not told not to cry. He's not told that sissy. He's experiencing his emotional body because as a man or woman, human being, planet Earth, carbon-based life form, biochemical, electromagnetic, that's our emotional feeling body. It's invisible, but it's full of information about my well-being. I dismissed the information about my safety and well-being, went to my head to compromise and comply. That became normal. And then I was to keep people away from me subconsciously, because I would tell you I'm a nice guy. I like people. I'll give you the shirt off my back. Just don't fuck with me. Well, no, that's a qualifier. Like I'm a dangerous man, and I didn't know it. And reconnecting to my feeling, visceral sensation, body, feelings in my body gives me information that I can now process through and move from reactive to, oh, that just happened. What do I want to do? What's best for me? And not try to be calm, cool in a frustrating situation. No, I'm frustrated. I'm scared right now, and I don't know why. Well, actually, I know why, because I have a reticular activating system. When somebody raises their eyebrow, you're about to get lambasted with something, either verbal criticism or a slap or told to leave because you're okay, and sort this all out. My hope is that I say something or you say something, or we say something that gets people to go, what? I want to know more. Okay, cool. Come to one of our groups. We have, I don't know how many podcasts we have where we do this over and over and over.
3
Talk
years
about
worth.
3 years worth of this disconnect from me. Who am I? I'm a human being, planet Earth, biochemical electromagnetic being. I have my 5 senses to keep myself from bumping my head on low-hanging objects. This doesn't give me any information about my emotional safety, my capacity to be vulnerable with people. My, I remember a woman asked me, "What are you feeling?" And I said, "We get along." It's like, no, John, that's what you think. If you think we get along, how do you feel? And I'm like, I don't. She asked me 3 times, and the third time I said, "I feel like you're coming at me with a baseball bat. Back off." And she just got these big eyes. I'm like, what the what? And I had no idea what she was asking me. A couple of years later, another woman said, "How do you feel?" And I go, "Oh, mushy, content, considered." And I went, "Oh, that's what the first woman was asking me." I had no idea. And for me to get to, "You're coming at me with a baseball bat," to, "Oh, I feel content," was a long period of intro of looking at where I came from and owning my truth of where I found myself. And adult children of alcoholics have a list of traits, they call it the laundry list of 14 traits that anybody raised in a dysfunctional family might exhibit. Okay, these traits: fear of authority figures, see criticism as a threat. Well, yeah, yeah, you criticize me, it means you call me stupid. No, oh, that's the wounding. Oh, I'm afraid of authority figures. Nice deep breath. Of course I'm afraid. My dad was an asshole. He was mean. He like, don't walk on eggshells. Don't wake him up. Don't say the wrong thing. Yeah. So I don't know if I can wrap this up, but I found that owning the behaviors, the traits, the characteristics and the traits, owning where I find myself violent, there was relief in that to finally just go, without blame or judgment, which I now experience as an adult, what I did not get as a child. I see you're frustrated. I see you're angry. I see you're scared. I see that you're hurt. Let me soothe it. Let me be with you. Not take it away, just be with you through this. Oh, okay. So I'm gonna scrape my knee. I'm gonna go out and play now. Not like, "Oh, you made such a big thing about this. That shouldn't hurt. You're a big boy. Don't quit your crying." Anyway.
Well, there's another thing that goes on there that you hinted at before when you used the word mirroring. And
Yeah.
when we support each other that kind of way, we're not only doing what you just said, but we're also saying you are included with me.
Yes.
You're in this in crowd of us. I want you to be here. And
Yeah.
that creates a sense of elation and happiness in a time when you're hurting,
Hmm.
because and then that teaches me as the hurting kid that I'm feeling included. Mom is cool with me. She's okay that I'm hurt. She's here for me, to learn to be able to then extend that to others,
Right.
not out of compulsion, but out of desire.
Right.
Because it was taught us without compulsion. It was taught us freely, and it was taught us with compassion and with joy by our caregivers.
Hmm.
That's something else I didn't get as a kid.
Right. And we started talking about the differences and different messages from different 12-step groups. I want to say that they all supply that. People like-minded, coming together, no blame, no judgment. Let's be here and see what happens. Acceptance.
Yeah.
Um, and it works. It works. I don't care what 12-step it is. They've saved millions of lives, and they're just fantastic. Um, Adult children of alcoholics address specific childhood trauma. Intentional living offers a practice in a group setting or sometimes one-on-one where you can safely move through and familiarize yourself with your feeling body and not
Yes,
be,
but and
yeah, and
here's the distinction between accountability practice and all those other practices is that not only do we do what you just said, but we then get the opportunity to say what we want if we don't want what we just experienced.
Yes.
So that's the sine qua non. That's the thing that without which the accountability practice would just be another um, landmark or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, and again, John, I've told you this before, I have yet to see this in any other modality of healing, psychological healing, the inclusion of what do you want and the setting of an intention based on what I want.
Yeah.
And as we're running out of time, I'd like to maybe dig into that a lot more next time
Okay.
because that for me, that's what made the difference. It's really powerful to be able to experience what I feel and name what I feel, but it's going to recur the next time someone raises an eyebrow or leaves crumbs on the toast,
Yeah.
unless I then start reprogramming that reticular activating system to look for something else.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, going back to what you said, planet Earth, biochemical, electromagnetic being, we are always accessing the whole range of emotional truth. But
Yes.
our reticular activating system is looking for a particular one. As long as, again, to your words, as long as I'm subconsciously recreating my childhood, then
Yep.
my reticular activating system is looking for a particular emotional vibration, fear,
Yep.
grief,
Mm-hmm.
hypervigilance. So
Mm-hmm.
what accountability practice taught me is I can use the same energy that programmed that uh, search and find mechanism
Yes.
to search and find joy, peace, freedom, community, health.
Yes.
And then what then occurs for me is that I still have problems, I still have pain, I still have anger, I still have frustration, but they now occur in a different environment.
Yes.
They occur in that environment of of the way you and your daughter treat the environment you give Solomon. I have
Yes.
learned to give to myself through this practice.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that in ACA.
No.
It's in between the lines there. When you read the ACA Red Book, if you know this, with you know what we know, you can see that it's kind of there, but it's not explicit the way it is in accountability practice.
Yeah. Yeah. Consider myself a blessed man to have experienced my life the way it was, to give me this information and find myself different, and then be able to offer this information to as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time. Wow. Yeah.
I'd say amen.
Hmm.
So guess what, John? We've come to the end of our time together here, and time flies when we're having fun, as always.
Hmm.
So for anybody who's watching this, particularly if you this is the first time or the first few times you watch this, please consider coming to a meeting and watch the process that John and I are talking about here actually unfold in real time as people share with John or me or whoever in our meetings, share the confusions, the doubts, the fears, the angers, the frustrations, and see how they work on the feeling, going to the actual feeling there, and then being offered the opportunity to say what you want and create something new. And at the end of the podcast, John's email or my email will be available. We're happy to send you the information on how to join the meetings. They're all on Zoom, so they're accessible anywhere in the world. Some some of you may have to get up in the middle of the night, but because we're both
Yeah.
on the Pacific coast here. But John does do some morning stuff, so that at least allows people in Europe some evening time. And so with that, I'll just, as always, ask if you have any last words before we close up shop.
I think I hope I've created some curiosity or some, even some angst. It's like, I'm gonna look this stuff up and see what these guys are talking about. These guys are, I don't know what they're talking about. Something to pique an interest in, whether it's our group, 12-step group, some place where you can find some relief and assistance to sort all this stuff out. So yeah,
Yeah, and then go create the life you really want to live.
exactly.
All right. Well, thank you, John, as always, for your time, and I look forward to doing this again in a couple weeks.
You got it. Thank you, Marty. Love
All
you.
right. You bet.
Mhm.